Tanse, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Krisan Achkate. Thank you for joining us. The Indigenous community in Manitoba is in shock this week after news broke on Wednesday about the statutory release of Sha Lamb, who went to prison in 2013 for killing 2 First Nations women in Winnipeg. The families and leadership say no one told them this was coming. With the details, here's APTN's TR Wheatley and a warning. Some of the details in this report may be disturbing for some.
It's all been a shock of emotions for the families of Lorna Blacksmith and Carolyn Sinclair, as well as the family of Tanya Neepanak, whose disappearance was tied to Lamb, but those charges were later stayed. They were not notified that the man who took their lives was being released from prison and only found out when APTN reached out.
As of November 7, at 11:30.
Sue Caribou is the aunt of 25-year-old Carolyn Sinclair and 31-year-old Tanya Neepanak.
I don't know why the justice system would keep releasing somebody that's so dangerous to the community. My family deserves to be contacted. Now I don't know where he lives. Now I don't know, I just have mixed emotions.
She's referring to Lamb's checkered past, which the parole board reviewed, including sexual and physical assaults and robbery. There are conditions in Lamb's release, including that he reside at a designated community-based residential facility or psychiatric facility approved by the Correctional Service of Canada for 6 months. He must also not consume drugs or alcohol for the duration of his release and immediately report all sexual and non-sexual relationships and friendships. Lamb must also not associate or communicate with any person he knows or has reason to believe is involved in criminal activity. Parts of Lamb's release plan have been blacked out. While we don't know where he is moving, it says he plans to reside in transition housing, receive assistance, and that he has an offer of accommodation with a contact he has maintained for a number of years. Grand Chief Kyra Wilson of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is disappointed the families, the First Nations they come from, nor any leadership were given this news before it happened.
And this information should be forthcoming to not only the families, but to everyone to be able to take proper precautions and safety measures.
According to the Parole Board of Canada, Lamb is a status First Nations man from the Aamjiwnaang First Nation in Ontario. He was apprehended by Children's Aid as part of the 60s scoop and adopted into a Caucasian foster family. Lamb described his foster parents as sadistic alcoholics and say he was subjected to psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. Because he is Indigenous, Lamb was not subjected to what's called a statistical information on recidivism scale, which estimates the probability of reoffending within a specific time frame. Wilson says the justice system failed these families and instead sided with the offender.
They need to have some sort of consequence to that. And in this case, 3 women were targeted. And to me, it's not about race. It's about making sure that we're keeping communities safe.
Something Carolyn and Tanya's aunt agrees with, going even further, saying for far too long, Lamb has used mental illness as an excuse.
All of us have that. We all need help, and we all need to talk to an elder or someone once in a while, but we don't go and kill somebody because of our mental illness. We get help.
In June 2012, Lamb was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder for 25-year-old Carolyn Sinclair, 18-year-old Lorna Blacksmith, and 31-year-old Tanya Neepanak. Blacksmith and Sinclair's remains were found in garbage bins near his apartment. In court, it was revealed he had cut them into pieces. Charges on Neepanak were stayed as there was not enough evidence. It's believed her remains ended up in the Brady landfill. A search there is expected to begin in December for Neepanak, as well as another woman, Ashley Shingus from St. Teresa Point. She was killed by a serial killer in 2022. Her aunt Sue is looking to that search now, hoping and praying Tanya's remains can be found and that Lamb can be charged and that her family will get justice. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And if you are affected by these stories, supports are always available 24/7 through the MMIWG support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. The Correctional Investigator of Canada had held a press conference on his final report on Wednesday. This latest one focuses on mental health and how a lack of access to treatment for Indigenous inmates needs to be improved. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Speaking to reporters in Ottawa on Wednesday morning, Ivan Zinger said corrections needs to improve mental health supports for Indigenous prisoners by putting more resources into community-run healing lodges, a program he said has been historically underutilized.
Only about 2% of Indigenous prisoners are held in Section 81 healing lodges. The vacancy has, there's a little bit more occupancies in some of those healing lodges. But to date, we haven't seen, the service hasn't come up with concrete increases in healing lodge beds.
Senator Kim Pate has long advocated for the rights of Indigenous people in the justice system. She agreed corrections often misclassifies Indigenous prisoners, making them ineligible for lower security healing lodges.
The classification system has been identified by the Canadian Human Rights Commission as racist, as discriminatory on the basis of race, sex, and disability, people with mental health issues, racialized people, and women. And so disproportionately Indigenous women and men, but particularly women, are more likely to be classified as higher security.
Zinger's report makes a number of findings, including discrimination continues to hamper access of Indigenous inmates to mental health supports, access to culturally based mental health services is lacking, and continuity of mental health care for Indigenous people upon release is poor. The report also recommends more mental health support services be provided at the community level rather than within correctional institutions. Pate said it is not surprising corrections has been unsuccessful since they have not provided any funding to support the request.
They've basically been saying to me and to many others, including the correctional investigator, oh, no service wants to contract with us. Well, you can imagine oversubscribed health services being approached by Correctional Service of Canada and them saying, you know, would you like to take these folks?
After 8 years in the job, Zinger is retiring 2 years before his current term expires. He said one of the reasons for his decision is too little movement from the government on addressing the gross overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the prison system.
Indigenous prisoners that are serving time in Canadian penitentiaries are more likely to be classified as maximum security prisoners. They're more likely to serve a greater proportion of their sentence in custody than non-Indigenous people. They're more likely to attempt suicide, self-harm, to be transferred involuntarily outside their communities.
In a press release, Public Safety Minister Gary Andasangri says he continues to work closely with the Office of the Correctional Investigator, and this includes addressing the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the federal corrections system. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
From November 10th to the 21st, world leaders have gathered in Belém, Brazil for the United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP30. However, during the second day, Amazonian Indigenous-led land defenders breached the front doors of the summit, saying they have been excluded from crucial talks. Hundreds of people stormed the hallways of the UN Climate Summit on Tuesday night as security tried to contain the crowds with tables. One land defender held a sign that read, "Our forests are not for sale." At least 2 security guards received minor injuries and there was minor damage to the venue. The protest happened as Brazil's president has said Indigenous communities are key players in this year's COP30 negotiations, as several resource extracting industries continue to further encroach on the Amazon rainforest. Indigenous land defenders said we can't eat money and called for their traditional lands in the Amazon to be free from agribusiness, oil exploration, illegal miners, and illegal loggers. They also want a guarantee of their rights as Indigenous people. 2 people who are now facing almost 80 charges were arrested by Saskatchewan RCMP in the Cut Knife area over the weekend after numerous guns and illegal drugs were found, including guns in a hidden compartment. Last Saturday on November 8th, the North Battleford Crime Reduction Team and Cut Knife RCMP stopped a black Escalade SUV with a man, woman, and 2 dogs inside. 6 guns were seized, including 4 that were loaded with ammunition in the chamber. Unstamped tobacco, a collapsible baton, and cash was also seized. 40-year-old Robert Norgard was arrested with 32 charges, including possession of methamphetamine and cocaine for the purpose of trafficking. 27-year-old Caroline Eagleshield from the Sweetgrass First Nation was also arrested and now faces 47 charges. Both made their first court appearance in North Battleford on Monday. The Cut Knife area is located about 180 kilometers northwest of Saskatoon. Dozens gathered outside the Federal Court of Appeal in downtown Ottawa on Wednesday for the second time this fall. They were there for support of the Kawichin First Nations legal battle against the proposed Chalk River nuclear waste site. This is the second rally and protest since October. That's when federal court heard Canadian Nuclear Laboratories appealed a decision that it failed to properly consult First Nations on a proposed low-level radioactive depository near Chalk River, Ontario. This time, the court heard CNL's application for a judicial review of the species at risk ruling and the decision that invalidated its permit to build at Chalk River. However, Kawichin says the project will pose a threat to the land and animals and says it could be a matter of months to hear a decision. But they hope the court rules CNL's permit as invalid and will send it back for reconsideration.
Which basically argued that the Species at Risk Act basically says that you must look at all reasonable alternatives or locations for a project. And in this instance here, that wasn't the case. Basically, they only looked at locations that were owned by CNL and or AECL, and that's not what the Act says. The Act says you're supposed to look at all reasonable alternatives, not just those that are easiest for you.
Northern Myotis. Golden-winged warbler. Golden-winged warbler.
And for Kawichin, one of those responsibilities is, being a voice for the voiceless. The land, the water, the air, the trees, the animals, the fish, they don't have a voice. And it's, to me, the responsibilities of Indigenous peoples, of the Algonquin Nation, to speak for those voices here.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Tina House is up next to bring us an update on the Kawichin land claim decision in BC. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now to Vancouver, where APTN's Tina House brings us an in-depth report on the Kawichin land claim decision and what it means for both sides of the issue.
It all started in 2019 when the Kawichin tribes decided to go to court to fight for their traditional territory. And in August of 2025, a British Columbia Supreme Court judge ruled that the Kawichin tribes have Aboriginal title over this 5.7 kilometer piece of land. It's along the Fraser River in Richmond. The area was once the summer village of Cloctinis, a place of great importance to the Kawichin people.
Well, I've been up here most of my life, since I was 14.
Robert Morales is a lawyer and chief negotiator for the Hulkaminam Treaty Group. Although he wasn't a part of this court case, he has done extensive research and listened to oral history on the village of Cloctinis.
The elders would go together, bulrushes, they would go together, different species of fish, they would dry them and bring them back for winter. They would go and gather mountain goat wool for making blankets and things like that. So as I say, there were resources there that weren't available here, and so it was a natural part of the rounds that they made in terms of their traditional territory and how they made use of it.
Now, the court's decision to grant Aboriginal title to the Kawichin is being appealed by the city of Richmond, the province, and the Musqueam Indian Band, who also claimed the area as their territory.
We respect the decision of Kawichin Nation to go to court to seek clarification. They were seeking a resolution with government for more than 30 years, and I understand why they decided to go to court. And at the same time, we have obligations both, I believe, to the Kawichin people about the injustice that was done to them, and also to private property owners in the province to provide clarity to them. We believe that the judge made some very serious errors in relation to the private property owners in Richmond, including the fact that they weren't even notified.
Landowners are scared, confused, and angry that the City of Richmond didn't tell them about this land claim. There are fears that the Kawichin tribe will kick them out of their homes now that they have title to the area. At this recent town hall meeting, homeowners had a chance to ask Mayor Malcolm Brodie some questions.
I'm asking you. You're the mayor. You're supposed to know everything that's going on in Richmond. I pay my taxes to you. Why did you not reach out to us? Why did you not send a letter? You send me a letter telling me there's going to be a hearing at City Hall, okay, with no real details. It's supposed to be information. Tonight, I've gotten zero information aside from what's on this little piece of paper, which is on the website already. So why didn't you reach out to us earlier?
Do the lawyers want to address that one? Yes. No, cool it, guys.
We also asked Mayor Brodie some questions after the town hall meeting. Your feet were held to the fire tonight, wondering about what you think about the homeowners asking why they weren't notified in 2014.
Yeah, well, you heard the answers. We've been working very hard on this case. We have gone through over 500 days of court hearings. We waited for the decision for 2 years before that. Application was made to have the plaintiffs give notice to the landowners. The court said it wasn't necessary, and so here we are.
The Kawichin tribes have been advised by legal counsel to not discuss the matter, but recently released this statement saying they were not going to be taking private homeowners' land. The Kawichin Nation's court case regarding their settlement lands at Clactinas and Richmond has not and does not challenge the effectiveness or validity of any title held by any individual private landowners. The ruling does not erase private property. However, Hereditary Chief Shanna Thomas from the Kawichin First Nation spoke about the issue at a recent news conference in Vancouver.
This decision has really highlighted, I hope, for Canada and British Columbia, the need to invigorate the BC treaty process and the need to advance that process to conclude more agreements, because that is how we get certainty. That is how First Nations get constitutional protection.
Go back outside. There you go. Angela Smith owns this condo that she rents out within the affected zone of the land claim. She is very concerned and only found out about this decision 3 weeks ago. She also attended the town hall hoping for answers.
Did they offer any more information that we already had? Not really, just basically that it's all going to court and they're going to try to make it work out, but it could be a long time, 4 to 5 years to minimum.
And back in Duncan, BC on Vancouver Island, the home of the Kawichin Nation, Steve Sweetzel is a member. He says there are other nations also involved in this decision.
It's the Kawichin group, which is several different First Nations that are part of this Kawichin decision. Penalakut, Liaxin, Halalt, and Kawichin. So they're all part of this case. So for me, having some knowledge of the treaty process working back in the 90s for the Halkidiki Treaty Group, I was surprised and understood what was happening back then when this was being brought forward and virtually nothing was happening. So it's fascinating to watch how it's gotten to this point.
The decision is now being appealed, but tensions are still high for the homeowners, despite reassurance from the Kawichin tribes that they will not be taking over their homes. Tina House, APTN National News, Duncan.
We now want to tell you about this week's second web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, should members of Parliament be allowed to switch political parties while still holding their seat? You can answer yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca/poll to have your say. Before we head to the break, our APTN journalist in Yellowknife had a rare opportunity to tour the giant mine remediation project just outside the city. Bruce Dela Cruz brings us a glimpse of what he's working on.
Hi there. The giant mine operated from 1948 to 2004 in Yellowknife, extracting over 7 million ounces of gold from the area. Unfortunately, 237,000 tons of highly toxic arsenic trioxide was left behind when the mine's owner, Royal Oak Mines, declared bankruptcy in the 90s, forcing the mine to close. Stay tuned later this week as I get a rare tour of the giant mine remediation project and see firsthand how Canada and the Northwest Territories are trying to clean up this toxic legacy. That story only on APTN National News.
On the East Coast, St. John's 5, Charlottetown rain in 5. Grand River partly cloudy in 1, and Nujawak 0 and rain. Saguenay -1 and sunny, Quebec City cloudy in 1. Toronto rain and 6, Peterborough 5. Sudbury 3, Thunder Bay 7. Puckatawagan -4, God's Lake -2. 2 in Gimli, Barons River 2. Yorkton 3, Saskatoon 2. Buffalo Narrows 3, La Ronge 4. Sunny and high level at -5, Fort Chipewyan partly cloudy and -2. Medicine Hat +9, Edmonton sunny out there and 4. Campbell River rain and 6, Vancouver showers and 10. Sandspit partly cloudy and 9, Prince Rupert showers and 6. Old Crow -24 and sunny, Rock River -19. Wati -11, Yellowknife sunny and -12. Sax Harbor -13 and sun's out there, Polituck -19. -8 in Chesterfield, sunny in Baker Lake at -12. And Resolute -16, Arctic Bay -21. It's Thursday, and that means Karen Pugliese joins us now from Ottawa to fill us in on what will be on today's Nation to Nation. Karen?
So coming up on Nation to Nation, the pressure to mine is mounting. A chief in Ontario tells us that he's feeling pressure to lift a moratorium on mining, and he's also worried about what mining could do to the water. In the Yukon, a mine collapse sent cyanide and heavy metals into the land, a disaster some say was years in the making. And in Nunatsiavut, an Inuit deputy minister says the federal government is moving too fast, pushing projects before approvals are even in place. We'll ask, who's really in control of Canada's mining boom? That's tonight on Nation to Nation.
Thank you, Karen. And that's your daytime newscast for this November 13th. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast, including an all-new segment of Truth in Politics. Please join us then. From our reporters from across the country and from our great staff here in Winnipeg, thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Excellent.